coronavirus is fairly similar, and in fact the coronavirus is more transmissible than the influenza virus under usual conditions. So the modelling they're using, the models they use are fairly sophisticated, and that initial data that showed that there was going to be a horrendous amount of deaths is one reason why the government changed its strategy. And I believe this new 20,000 figure that Imperial are now talking about takes into account the lockdown and anticipates the increase in testing that's going to happen. But it's still sobering to note that 20,000 is probably the minimum amount of deaths that the government is anticipating. So I think we have to be based on science, George, because if we're not based on science, we're based on opinion and subjectivism. And we have to be as objective as we can, and we have to go with the evidence that we've got. And I do see that has happened to some extent. And I really believe the strategies that we're following now of the lockdown and the way we reduce the social interactions, we know that does greatly increase the transmissibility of the virus. Not that it changes the transmissibility of the virus itself, of course. It doesn't change the biology of the virus. But what we have to remember is this virus can only live inside the human respiratory tract. It can only multiply inside human cells. And if we physically separate those human beings, we deny the virus that opportunity to transmit. Therefore, we break up its lifestyle and stop it from transmitting. And this is what we've seen with the reduction in number in China, the stabilization of the numbers and reduction of numbers in South Korea, and again in Taiwan, and to some extent in Hong Kong, although Hong Kong have backslidden a bit lately as some of the restrictions have been reduced.
What about the...
He's about to go on to talking about the psychological, so we're just talking about how to stop the transmission of the virus, and at the end of it they talk about young people dying, doctors and stuff in the front line. So it's worth doing this lockdown, and it must continue. So anyway, I just wrote a text message to Aardvark, and unfortunately when you send it and if it goes offline you lose it, and unfortunately the number of times I've typed something and lost. But what I was saying, and I'll say it on this video because it doesn't exist otherwise, and I'm not typing it out again. If every street has a person who sets up a newsletter, and you're allowed to walk for exercise, you can post. So with paper you can print and then distribute it. So in an A4 one-page newsletter 3 times a week, it needs to be regular, and it basically just calls, first of all, letters to the editor. So it just asks for people if they have any letters to write and stick it in the post box, and people can go from there. I do realise that there's obviously, if you print something and you deliver it with gloves, for example, so you're able to disinfect it by putting it out in the sun. The viral matter is disinfected by things like hydrogen peroxide or the sun. So you can, there's various ways to sterilise the postage, if you like. And so basically letters to the editor, so then people can walk and put an A4 or write it and put it in your letterbox, and then every 3 days you just type it up and put it out again. The reason for that is there's going to be some need for people, once the lockdown starts to come off the 4 to the 3 in New Zealand's case, to the 2 to the 1, so that then there's some interactions, because there's certain things that we need. We've got water from the council and the rubbish collection, but there are certain food items, there are various things of that nature. We're seeing supermarkets price gouging, we're seeing dairies, we're seeing butchers not up there, so there's going to be some supply chain issues, and there's people that have got the ability to talk and share, and even though they can't gather in a community, they can still have a newsletter.
This last point, Doctor, and I'm grateful for your time. A few of the lads in the office this evening, by the grace of God, have not had any corona symptoms, but they're going nuts. They're going mad, cut off from life, stuck in their houses, some of them unmarried, some of them champing at the bit. There is a mental health cost as well as a societal cost, and of course not to mention a gigantic economic cost from this period of lockdown and isolation, isn't there?
You're absolutely right, George. I mean, technically at the moment, you can't take your girlfriend for a walk if she doesn't live in the same household.
Quite.
It really is. These implementations are quite draconian, but they are based on this epidemiology. But we have to remember that people are body, soul, mind, spirit. We are eclectic, holistic beings, and we just have to be so aware of the anxiety, the stress, the mental stress. I mean, for example, I'm on record as saying that there'll be an increase in birth rate in December, which is 9 months from now, of course. And there'll also be an increase in things like, I regret to say, probably domestic violence, divorce, all sorts of problems with people being forced to stay in the household. And for young people, especially, as you say, are chomping at the bit. They want to get out. They want to be doing things. They want to be living their lives. It's very difficult for them. And we really have to come together and support each other in this and realise that everyone is in the same position. And this cost is immense. But the alternative is a cost which is probably even higher, and that is many people will die. And this can include young people as well, because although the probability of death increases with comorbidities, although the probability of death increases with increasing age, we still get some tragic cases of young fit people with no comorbidities that get this and die. This tragic case of the ENT surgeon, for example, who died today after working in an A&E department. I don't know. We don't know why young fit people sometimes die, but they sometimes do. So the balance is: are we going to put up with this confinement for what may turn out to be a good few months, to be quite honest, or are we going to risk the individual's death going out, and as they come into other contact with other people and come into contact with vulnerable people, the almost certain risk of quite a few of the vulnerable people they're going to come into contact with. So it's a really difficult equation. I don't pretend to have the answer, but what I do know is we need to support each other through it, understand our anxieties, understand our frustrations, and communicate. Human beings are communicators, and we have to come alongside people allegorically, even if we can't come alongside them physically, and really support people as much as we can through this. So make that call, make that internet connection, make that Facebook friend, and just make people feel included, that we're all going through this together, because we are.
Dr. John Campbell, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Yeah, I have to thank Dr. John Campbell as well. He's definitely had a lifetime of experience, and he's making a great public globally, and I'm able to use his inspiration as a mentor to give you these bits of advice. So think about that, writing a newsletter. It's just an A4. If you've got a printer and a computer, you can deliver it, and encourage, if someone's already doing one and you want to do another one, then do another one. The idea of having 3 or 4 newsletters, the purpose of it is to bring the community together again, and the media is an important part of that. The other thing, once you have a newsletter, then you can obviously have an election in the street. We do have our civic boundaries, but these things are now going to be changed by the virus. We need to unite in the street level first, and we need to get to know our neighbours and stuff like this. So that's one of the things this video is about. Those of you who are technically wanting to know how I'm able to do my videos, I've got an Apple TV which I play through the internet here. I've got my GH2 Panasonic Lumix camera which I record, and then I stuck it into a Raspberry Pi 4 which I just purchased before the lockdown, and I've downloaded a rendering program which is KDENLIVE, which is the best, if I like, and it works perfectly. So I do my video work on that and then upload to the internet on ADSL on a farm, so I'm just on basically the copper lines, nothing flash. So that's what I'm doing here. Okay, have a good day, and yeah, just as I said, like and subscribe. If I've earned your subscription, appreciate that, and make a comment. Right, turn this off.